Hey everyone, good to see so many people here live with us. We are excited. There's like almost 130 people now who signed up for this. People are still trickling in, so very excited to see people from all over the world. So today we're going to speak to David Sternberg.
Hey everyone,
And
good to see so many
sorry, I have a
people
little echo here. Let me see
live
if
with
I can
us.
mute.
We are excited.
You're right. Sorry about that. We're going live on LinkedIn, and so there's this. Apparently, it's playing on LinkedIn a few seconds later. So sorry about that. We're going to be talking to David Sternberg about going from gut feeling to real signal. And I'll introduce him in a second. But first, I wanted to introduce a little bit this space, the series, and myself. And then I'll give you a nice intro for David. So get ready, get comfortable. So we're using Crowdcast today. So Crowdcast is this environment we're in the main stage area. This is just me, David, our deck, and essentially you don't have to be worried that you're being watched. You're not, it's not like a Zoom. You can do the dishes or yell at your kids or do whatever you want in the background. We can't see or hear you, which I think is pretty comfortable for this medium. We do see what you write in the chat, and everybody else can see what you write in the chat. And so I do encourage you, if you haven't done so, just go in and introduce yourself, ask each other. You can comment on things we're seeing. It's not the ideal place for question though, so this is the place to kind of participate and react and talk to other participants. And then we have an ask questions section right below the chat in the right sidebar. That's where we hope you'll ask us questions. So we're going to leave like 10 minutes for questions, where we just kind of take your questions based on what's been upvoted most. And try to kind of think on our feet and see if we can offer some thoughts. In addition, I put 2 polls in the field. That's the next tab with the little graph icon. We're just trying to get to know you, like what your role is, what you're hoping for, what your level of AI, like, anything you can tell us there and in the chat would help us tailor it as we go along. And the most common question we always get is this recorded? So the answer is yes, this is recorded. In fact, you don't have to do anything. You just stay here, and once the webinar is over, the recording will appear right here in the same link. And we'll also send it to people who registered and couldn't make it. We'll send that link to them. If we are going to lock it so that people who don't register until the end of this will not get access to this recording. But anybody who registers before the end will get it. So cool. So this is my answer. So it's time to introduce myself in the series. So my name is Eran Dror. Back in 2019, I actually wrote my master's thesis on AI safety. So it's before ChatGPT, but it was already clear that AI was going to be very, very powerful. And I was doing a degree in Buddhism. But I couldn't write a paper about Buddhism without talking about what's happening in the world. And AI was clearly the thing that was going to happen to the world. And so I connected it to that. One of the things that it got me really interested and involved in to this day is this problem of misalignment and how to work with AI to make sure that the outcomes are good for humanity. That led to a lot of fun projects. We did a workshop at DeepMind. We are now doing a workshop at OpenAI around these topics. We're designing some cool things with them. That's separate from Evermuse. But it did lead me to Evermuse, Evermuse is kind of our startup today, which is meant to help companies scale their listening and their empathy as they're building with AI. Because it gets harder and harder to kind of stay connected to what people want as you're building faster and faster with AI. So this is our startup, and this is we create a series of talks with really interesting people. We're going to do one once every 2 weeks. We did one with Jake Knapp, who wrote the book Sprint. We did one with Jeanette Mellinger, who is the UX researcher, senior UX researcher at Uber and a bunch of other places. And today we're bringing you David Sternberg, which I am super excited to introduce to you. So let me give you just a couple of notes about David. So David is the design principal at NiaHealth. Before that, he spent 5 years at HelloFresh, most recently as global director of product design across the US, Canada, and Europe. He's also the author of The Flow Equation, Quantum Field Mechanics of User Experience, which is a mouthful and a really interesting idea. And it introduces a framework that borrows from quantum theory, fluid dynamics, cognitive psychology, and behavioral economics to model and predict user behavior. So someone very interesting to talk to at this time specifically. He holds degrees in mechanical engineering and philosophy from Western University, and he studied strategic management at Harvard. So I think you can tell that David is a really interesting person. So with no further ado, I want to bring David on the stage and kind of start this conversation. Hi, David. How's it going?
Hi, Eran. Great to be here. Great to be here with everyone. Thank you for the introduction. It actually made me sound really impressive. I'm just a regular guy, not that impressive in real life.
Yeah, well, I think everyone is a regular person, including impressive people, right? Like that's we're all impressive in some ways.
That's true,
and probably unimpressive in others. I know at least about myself.
I know the same thing. Yes, ask my wife anytime.
Nice. So we have, your book is very, very interesting and very relevant for this time. I want to start with kind of a broad question. Like you talk about UX and UX research becoming more of a science and less of a gut feel. So I want to hear from you, like, what does that mean for the PM role, for our daily job, for, and how does it even connect to quantum mechanics? So give me like a little intro.
Okay. So in practical terms, it changes what kind of hypothesis you form before changing a product. And quite well, there's a lot of folks here on the call. Product teams already use hypotheses, but they're often intervention of the intervention type. So kind of like if we simplify this flow, conversion will increase, and that's pretty useful. But it predicts what might happen, not necessarily why. A more scientific approach asks about the mechanism underneath, the underlying mechanism. Why people are abandoning? Is it uncertainty? Is it cognitive resistance? Loss of trust? Competing choices? I could name a bunch. Generally a breakdown in their mental model, and that. This gets an important distinction. Measurement isn't the same as science, right? That's we have to make the distinction, and that's pretty close to where probably we'll be heading this conversation towards. People measure the movements of planets for centuries before Newton. Newton's breakthrough wasn't simply better measurement; it was proposing an underlying mathematical system that could explain those observations and predict what would happen next. UX is extraordinarily good at observational part, right? Like we've been doing it for decades. We measure clicks, we measure conversions, abandonment, time on task. Feel free to in the chat, like just write all of them. But they mostly tell us what happened. After the fact, we also constantly talk about friction. We talk about flow, cognitive load, uncertainty. But what exactly is friction? Have you thought about that? What is friction? We often use these terms descriptively without having a model of the underlying dynamics producing them.
Yeah,
and that's where
friction can be many things, right? Like friction could be emotional friction, resistance. It could be like that it's just hard, too many clicks to do some things. Any 100%. Number of types of friction. Yeah.
100%. And so that's where QFit goes further from those just observations. It asks whether we can define these phenomena rigorously enough to model the relationship mathematically. Don't get scared. You don't have to be a mathematician. But eventually, I'm hoping it explains and predicts how an interaction evolves when conditions change. So you don't need to start right away solving quantum equations. The practical shift is much simpler. Don't just hypothesize what will work. Hypothesize why the behavior is occurring in the first place. What evidence should exist if you're right, and whether your model predicts what happens when you change these conditions. So I don't want to remove intuition completely from the equation. It still matters. Science, by the way, has always had was dependent on intuition. I think Einstein thought about was it writing with light waves before he even sat down and wrote anything. So it is important. The problem is not into absolutely. It's just that we so far, and this is kind of looking at ourselves in the mirror, that our intuition has never required to confront reality. Besides, we've been successful or not successful, and so I'm looking for that accountability.
Interesting. So you're saying even before you propose a change and see whether that change produced an improvement, you should be able to say why is the observable behavior what it is? What does that mean about like the makeup of the people who are using this? And here's my theory about what that happens. So it's enough to say it kind of broadly, like, hey, I expect listen, 30% of our users probably come from this sort of persona, and that sort of persona cares about, this thing that's not there. And so they leave, and I predict that if I put that mention of that thing in a prominent place, then that 30% would behave differently, would behave this way.
To a degree. Now, I personally hate personas. I genuinely hate personas. I think I had this chat about this. And every time I go to a team discussion and there's other UXers, other product folks, and I'm like, I hate personas. Like, what the hell do you mean?
Yeah, I hate personas too. It's a simplification. It's an oversimplification. Yeah, for sure.
Very much so. And what we're seeing nowadays, you have stimulation of personas. Anyway, we'll probably get into that discussion. But generally, you make these predictions. So exactly to your point, I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to ask why you know something is to be true, or what's the mental state of a person outside of the persona. So and this is why I hate personas. You could be a mother that's super busy, that's working full time, parenting full time, upper middle class. Like, what does it tell you about how they use the product, or whether they receive a phone call right as they're entering a banking information? And so QFIT, or the quantum states, help you predict what could happen when things start changing around, and there's movement and friction in a system that if that happens, the following thing will happen. If something else happens, something else happens. So it constantly changes. It builds this model that predicting what could happen if you introduce positive or negative friction.
Yeah, fascinating. So I want to bring it into the AI, the time we live in. Everybody's talking about AI in product now, and we all use it, more and more in some ways. Where do you think we are in terms of AI in product work? Like, does it get closer to your vision or farther away from it? Do we, how do you make use of it? Like, what's your reaction?
I think I'm smart enough to know that I'm too dumb to predict what's going to happen with AI. I'm in the known unknowns stage.
Yeah.
So I don't quite know. But, with regards to vision, I'd say the least interesting thing about AI, to me at least, is that it could write your email. I think we could all agree it's beneficial, but that's not where we're seeing it. The genuinely profound development is that For 70 years, computers fundamentally were deterministic instruments.
Yeah.
You gave them instructions, they follow those instructions. AI changes the relationship because now the machines can infer. It can
Yeah.
observe
Now it is a
incomplete.
relationship.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely,
instead of a tool. Yeah,
and that's a beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful and crazy.
it
I
is.
don't
Yeah,
even. Sometimes have to think like, are we really having this discussion? Am I in a future science fiction, reality?
yeah, yeah,
Um, so we have these systems that are now can take a lot of incomplete evidence, construct probabilistic representation of what might be happening, and it's
yeah,
extraordinarily important because human computer interaction. Um, um, well, human beings don't arrive at an interface as deterministic systems themselves. We are ambiguous creatures. We're easily distracted. We change our minds. We hold contradictory intentions simultaneously all the time. And we really don't always know what we want. So for the first time, we're building computational systems that their basic mode of operation is arguably better suited for that ambiguity of the organisms, us
mm,
using them. And that for me is that holy grail, or at least the beautiful shift that we're going to be seeing.
yeah. That's super
Um,
interesting. Um, I think you can think about it from a steering perspective, which is I used to say AI is the first time where like a machine doesn't come with a driving wheel or in controls. Like it's you have to convince it to do something. Like
yeah,
and um, and then but also from the perspective of, oh, now it is more suited to understand you, and that's definitely feels like where we're making a lot of progress is those AI agents can read you very, very quickly,
yeah.
from even just a few words, kind of understand, intuit what you actually want,
My
to the
gosh,
point where I get very different results from someone else typing a similar query, right?
I was just about to say, I don't know if you play this game. Probably a lot of people play this game at home, where their partner have a completely separate persona when they interact with their ChatGPT, or maybe not cloud. I don't really know because I don't use it as much besides
Mm,
coding. But I use extensively ChatGPT for having discussions and interesting things. My wife's ChatGPT is completely different than mine.
really?
And I feel almost attached to it. And I can't say that that's a feeling that's happened to us before. We get
Yeah,
attached to a persona of a machine. It's kind
yeah,
of crazy.
yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely felt that when so I do talk a lot with Claude, and when they upgraded from uh, 4.6 to 4.7, I really got annoyed because the personality changed in an unpleasant
Hmm.
way, and then again when it became super kind of paranoid about being wrong and really nervous type of personality with Opus 5, and you're like, and then Fable is something else completely, because Fable it thinks it's smarter than you and is probably right about most things, but it kind of knows it, and it kind of is like is much more no bullshit kind of, no, that's the wrong way to think about it. Here's what's right, and every time the personality really changes, and it's almost like a loss. You're like, wait, where's my buddy that I did so much good work with?
I,
It's really, really phenomenal. So tell us about your stack in your, like, so it sounds like you use ChatGPT for like voice conversations, or how do you interact with it? And then, yeah, Claude.
so ChatGPT, I use. Um, I have a lot of conversation about either philosophy. I brought some of my actually was edited extensively. My book was edited extensively through ChatGPT because it was. Uh, I kind of trusted it to write things in a more elevated way than I personally speak or able to write.
Mm, mm,
But of course, I knew that I have to be in the loop, and
yeah,
that the final version is not something that I just like let loose.
yeah, you
Um,
want to sign your name to it? Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And so I do a lot of that kind of work. and then I use Codex extensively. I find the difference between Codex and Claude are Codex is that sort of more mature programmer that 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 takes their time to think about something and then do it. And
Mm.
Claude is that, highly energetic, super enthusiastic, younger engineer that's just like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go do it. And then it's just like, there
Yeah.
you go, here you go.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I always balance between these two, and I sometimes pass around from Codex to Claude, from ChatGPT to Claude, and
Yeah.
try to build something that I'm personally satisfied with. I have my own taste and satisfaction needs, and
Yeah.
so I kind of use those, at the same time.
What do you plug into those just to kind of have a sense of your stack?
Uh,
Like, are they connected to any of your tools? Are you like what kind of flows do you use them for in product
so
work?
primarily these days, um, uh, a lot of the documentation is done with ChatGPT, and that would include connecting to databases, or not databases, connecting to knowledge bases.
Mm.
Uh, uh, um, and then on the flip side, Cursor extensively. Gosh, how much money I spend at Cursor, but I guess everyone
Yeah.
else does. Um,
Yeah.
and that connects to a lot of the analytics, that connects to a lot of other things, and that allows us to stay closer to the ground when it comes to making changes and things like that. Of course,
Mm.
Figma is involved. I'm still, you know, maybe I'm old school, but I still like, uh, uh, um, putting ideas together in either a Fig Jam board,
Mm.
Miro, or any one of those tools, but then
Yeah.
importing them back to something that we could work on better, ultimately making its way to production, production code. So it's generally the
Amazing.
stack. I started using Evermuse too, which is a
Oh.
wonderful bridge between all of these things combined.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's nice to hear. I didn't even realize that. But um, so the Claude thing, like, yeah, are you kind of finding yourself? And one of the things we're doing a lot of interviews now with product leaders, and one of the things that we're hearing is like, I live in Claude or I live in ChatGPT. It's more common to hear with Claude. I never leave Claude. I jump between the code and the co-work and chat for deep research, but I never get out. If I want to file a ticket, I tell Claude to file a ticket. If I want to work in Miro, I tell Claude create the Miro with these ideas, and then I look at the Miro and then I said change it to do this, design it better, do this. Is that something that you've developed, or are you still feeling like you're spending a good amount of time in other tools?
I am. I am. And I think we'll get to a point. So there was a short period of time at the beginning of the year, token maxing. Everybody was proud by
Yeah,
how much they spend per month.
yeah,
I think we're kind of moving a little bit away from that and back to kind of normalcy,
yeah,
where, instead of saying to Cloud, hey, check out main, to just writing that command in your
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
your terminal. So I think there's ebb and flow of our usage, and maybe sometimes it'll be very, very easy for me to stay within that tool. But generally speaking, I try not to. I
yeah,
find that to be too confining.
yeah,
And as creative professionals, and I'm not talking about designers alone, I'm talking about product people, engineers, researchers. I think
yeah,
if we confine ourselves to one tool, we're gonna start having this tunnel vision, and that's
yeah,
not necessarily a good thing.
yeah. No, I tend to agree with that. I feel like what I found myself doing a lot is like getting Claude to do a first pass
Hmm.
just to see what it is, and then I'm like, no, 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 let's change this. So even if I work on a workshop on Miro or I work on some, it's like, yeah, give me the raw materials. Like, here's what I want, put it in there, and there's a lot of good ideas that it expresses. But then I come in and I really try to make it fit my thing, and if I don't do it, then the outcome suffers, right? In every case, if I just let it build on its own. But I've learned to not underestimate it. Like I've learned to like ask. ask first, because sometimes I'm surprised and it's like 95% done, and sometimes I'm, as I expect, it's like only 50% done. So it's I've learned to not assume. So I want to ask you about, before diving into really how your book translates to really how to do UXR with AI today. I want to ask you what makes you feel alive today? Like with AI, what makes you excited? What is, what can't you wait to get back to? Like what are these things awakening in you?
I think I might have some multiple answers.
Okay.
With regards to work, I don't think work is keeping me alive. Actually, for me, my entire life revolves around a toddler, a 3-year-old, that is both the greatest joy and the greatest frustration in my life right now.
For sure.
But with regards to what's happening right now, this shift in AI, this insane speed with which we are evolving things, I was ready to call it quits completely with tech, I think a couple of years ago. I've been doing this for a while. As far as I'm concerned, I was happy to go and maybe open up a farm or build a factory that does just manual things, because I was pretty done with this crazy rat race that we've always been in, especially if you're in agile environments, from sprint to sprint to sprint to sprint. I'm like, okay, so what are we doing? Even if there's a goal, there's a pot of gold in that rainbow, there's and then what? There's always this feeling, okay, I'll finish this and then what?
It's ephemeral. Like it doesn't stay. Oftentimes, like a year later, what you built doesn't even exist anymore,
Exactly. And so I was ready to call it quits. And then I saw what's happening with AI. And I think I'm not unique in saying that a light bulb moment kind of really, really flashed at me. I wouldn't say it's a light bulb, it's a halogen light, hit me in the face. We are about to experience something that is greater than the internet, greater than the Industrial Revolution. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Can I make a difference in it? I don't know. I mean, I'd love to. Can I take advantage of the tools and can I take advantage of the exciting things? I would love to try. And that's partially one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because it's funny, writing a physical manual is manual labor, but I knew that I needed to come with a better framework for our field to prepare us for what's to come. To prepare us for building dynamic generative interfaces rather than rehashing all methodologies and all things that are kind of maybe good for the old times. So that kind of gave me a fire in me to say, I got to get this book out. I got to get these ideas out because I believe that will have contribution to what we're building together as humanity.
Yeah. Oh, I feel you there. Like, I feel like for the first time, one of the things I noticed is like when we look at the society we built, we're not always very happy with where we ended. And I think one of the ways it expresses itself is there's so many movies and series about the end of the world. And I think part of it is like subconscious desire to start again. Like we're not super happy with like hyper capitalism, materialism, having to work super hard for a very remote chance of having a better life, and valuing job over friends, and like there's something that feels like we constructed it wrong. And AI is actually the first time that I've had hope that actually through technology and through innovation, we can actually reclaim back to ourselves our time and our sovereignty over ourselves by having somewhere to put, the work that has to be done can be done now by machines more and more. Or the works that we don't want, the work that we don't find meaningful. And so, this is just, I think a lot of people who are staying around AI is because like, hey, this is a giant force of change. And maybe if the right people are working at it, there's a way to nudge it in the right direction, uh, which has the potential to actually rewrite a lot of the things we don't like about society. Um, so I want to okay. So I want to we kind of got into a lot of philosophy. I want to bring us down to earth. So you know, in an AI world, where how do we apply your like UX and research principles? We're seeing a lot of attempts of using AI in various ways. We talked about simulating users. So how do you think about that? Can we skip user interviews and just sit with like telling Claude to become a persona, different persona each time? And how do you think
Uh,
about it?
so no. um, and there's I'm trying to think. There could be a good analogy made from engineering in general. We simulate aircrafts before we build them.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean that we should stop using wind tunnels. And and I'd say wind tunnels don't eliminate flight testing, right?
right.
Each method exposes a different class of error. A model could say, given that we believe about the system or what we believe about the system, this should happen. Reality then gets the privilege of disagreeing with us. That's
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 right.
that's science, right?
Yeah,
The danger with AI simulation is that people will confuse plausibility with evidence, and we've seen it in other ways, but AI it's like 10 times worse.
it's more
And
convincing. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
An AI generated persona will produce extraordinary evidence explaining why, Jane 34 abandoned checkout. Hey, Jane doesn't exist. I'm sorry for all the Janes out there. I mean, that specific Jane. That's
yeah,
not research. And in QFIT simulation should therefore generate hypotheses and predict behavioral distributions, not manufacture evidence.
yeah,
Then research becomes enormously valuable because now you're asking, where does reality diverge from the model? And do these divergences often, I'd say they're often where good discovery begins. So
mm,
actually, I think sophisticated simulation makes empirical research more scientifically meaningful, not less. But as long as we don't skip steps and we say, okay, this is good enough, we don't need to go and bring it in front of users. AI
yeah,
told us everything.
yeah. And would you use customer inputs? One of the things we're thinking about is like, hey, we actually learn a lot from these user interviews that will allow us to create much more realistic personas or profiles. Um, so is there kind of a loop there where what you learn can actually improve simulation?
100%. 100%. You're training the model to connect the dots, and it will start building probabilities around things that it's already seen, and it could start building things around it. So there's definitely space for doing that, and what you're doing totally makes sense. So I don't say don't do AI. Uh, let's not call it personas, but use simulation,
Yeah,
but also go out to the field and see how things actually genuinely worked out for you.
yeah, and compare your simulation results to real results, and then
Improve
learn
it.
from that. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so you advocate using math, which is scary to a lot of UX researchers and product folks who are not from that background. Some are, of course, but um, and the question of like you have fuzzy concepts like this user is confused or there's some hesitation or there's like what are you advocating that we use more math on? And have you tried to kind of think about how that would work with AI in the loop? Like, can it help us actually do this better?
I don't doubt that if it is in the loop, AI can definitely take advantage of it. I think primarily the question is how does it fit into research or rather researchers.
Yep.
So, we say fuzzy numbers. First of all, you have a right to be suspicious about these numbers, right?
Right.
And bad quantification is way worse than admitting ignorance. Giving the number to something, so fuzzy or otherwise, doesn't make it scientific. It will only tell you that there's some, let's just say, confusion is 7.3, and that's where you should be suspicious. 7.3 what? What is the operational
Confusions.
exactly? What do you mean? What observation produced it? Can two independent researchers or agents, send two agents, can they independently reproduce that confusion, that fuzzy number? Does it predict anything? Can it be falsified? That's the discipline. And we just shouldn't make the opposite mistake of concluding that just because something is psychologically complicated, it cannot be measured. And I'm thinking of an interesting analogy. I love my analogies. Temperature. Hear me out. It's very interesting historically because people experience hot and cold for as long as we've been human, maybe even before, probably before that. That happened way before thermodynamics existed. The subjective phenomenon preceded the measurement system. So, but eventually we discovered that there are underlying variables that we could measure pretty consistently. And I argue, and I could be wrong, but like it's open for everyone to challenge me, that psychological states may be similar they may be similar in many ways, but maybe it's a bit more difficult in a more difficult sense. We could not directly measure confusion. We could maybe measure hesitation, errors, eye movements, latency, and behavioral entropy. All of these are providing evidence. So the fuzzy number is not the phenomenon. It's a model of evidence concerning the phenomenon.
Yeah. Though if you look at some screen recordings, you can often see confusion in front of you. Like you can be like, where does the mouse go? Right. Even that you could probably find a way to measure.
Right.
Like how many points did it go through before it settled on what's the right place to do? What's the right thing to do? Did it ever settle? Did it ever find what it was looking for? So it's an interesting thing. What are some, so I want to dive into kind of your vision of where products are going with AI, which I think is really unique and interesting. But what are some like practical takeaways, that things that you're already applying with AI to make your own understanding of what's going on, your understanding of the why sharper, better? Like how give me an example from a recent project or a recent decision you made where you feel like, wow, I used my theory, I used AI together, and I got a better result.
With regards to the theory, and I wrote a paper about it. Something that I could never explain. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. It is when you have a decision fatigue. We've all seen decision fatigue. We call it out. We say, okay, there's too many options. What the hell happens? Like, what is happening in people's mind that causes people to say to abandon or freeze when there's too many options on the table? And so, using QFit, I was able to really see that it follows an interference pattern. So, a lot of you are using noise canceling headphones. These are not these are noise canceling headphones.
Nice.
The technology behind that is that you have these. I'm gonna botch it, so I'm not gonna explain it fully. But generally, you have you have frequencies, and then you have things that are recording the outside noise, and they're doing the opposite of that. So they're kind of canceling each other out. So you see from a
It's a
spike.
wave canceling
e-
a wave.
e-
It's a counter wave. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens when you have multiple
Decision
choices.
fatigue. Oh,
Decision
that
fatigue.
is that's a fascinating idea. And actually, that really answers. So one of the things that I've been struggling with recently is like, why is everybody insisting that differentiation is so important? I was like, why is it so important that I can say in one sentence how my product is different from every other product? Why does it have to be? Can it just be better in the exact same category? Like, can it be just like, yeah, it's a to-do list. It's just way better than every other to-do list because we thought more deeply about it. But why is it so important to describe it as something completely different?
Yeah, I mean, then you're getting into behavioral economics and perceived
But
value and all
even
these
that,
other good
with
things.
that interference, is kind of like saying, listen, if you're perceived as the same as another, as like literally every other competitor they hear about is like a wave that cancels whatever energy they felt they were due.
Yep.
Right? And you canceling them, and like eventually they just stay in this non-action mode. It's kind of fascinating way to look at it. And was that like a mathematical model that you've had to construct to understand that behavior?
Yep. Had to construct it. I had to model it. I'm not very good at some of the tools. I have a twin brother who's much smarter than I am. That helped me out with putting up what is that tool called? Jeez,
MATLAB.
Math Labs. Thank you.
Okay. My
And
dad is a mathematician. That's how I know.
so there you go. So putting doing the experiments and then seeing people come through and then getting hit with something of equal measure, and then you start seeing how it cancels each other out. It looks exactly like interference patterns. Exactly. Like you've predicted it. The mathematic was there. Now that's just one example. That does not mean that the entire QFit is correct. I welcome people coming in and saying, "Hey, this is wrong. This is why we can improve it." I would welcome that kind of challenge. But for the time being, with my limited resources and time, I'm starting to see that things that never made sense to me. I mean, they made sense. I'm like, of course, too many options. People have hard time choosing.
I kind of want you to run like Fable or Soul 5.6 in a loop to go apply this method across like a million other things and see if you can come up with good explanations based on this, because it sounds like it's something that an AI could do once you have the theory and the tools.
Yeah.
So let's talk about AI infused products and how, some of the things that you're kind of predicting and some of the things that we're already starting to see, right? So you talk about apps that notice when the user is confused and overwhelmed and actually adjust in real time, right? You talk about apps that are smart enough to reshape themselves around the user's particular needs. And obviously the classic is the AIs themselves and now one of the most recent things that they can do is also construct kind of a custom interface for you. You ask a question and they can create an interface that's perfect for that question for you to explore it.
Right.
So are fixed interfaces dead? And what does it mean about, like, how do we even do design research and product work if that is the case? Like, is there still something to do as a researcher in a world where the AIs and the apps kind of design themselves?
Absolutely. And that's where we could have a lot of fun. As product teams, as product designers, engineers, we're going to provide a lot of value. And hear me out. This is why I think I might be wrong, but this is why I think it's the case. Yes, generative designs will be a thing, guaranteed. And I think that does represent one of the largest changes in the history of interface design, but also potentially one of the greatest opportunities. The screen has always been an artifact. To your point, someone is designing a screen, and generally the way it works is someone designed it yesterday so that someone else could use it tomorrow. But if interfaces become generative, the designer can no longer specify every artifact. So what the hell do we design?
Yeah.
Well, we design constraints, we design priorities, we design relationships, we design permissible transformations, behavioral rules, ethical boundaries. These are juicy things to sink your teeth into.
100%.
Yeah. So in other words, designers, engineers, and product practitioners, they move up a level of abstraction.
Yes.
Instead of producing artifacts that change a button, move the thing, they really move up a level of abstraction. And I think a beautiful, again, one of my analogies, maybe that's how my brain works, but think about architecture. The architect doesn't design merely, they don't design where every person will stand inside a building. They create a structure within which thousands of unpredictable human behaviors will occur safely, hopefully.
Yeah.
And so AI interfaces will increasingly require something similar, in my view. And I think that's actually a much harder design problem. When you're designing a screen, you ask, where should this button go? When you're designing an adaptive system, you ask, under what conditions should this button even exist?
Yes.
That's a profoundly different
I have
profession.
a perfect example for you, because we did a design sprint recently, and one of the things that came out of a design sprint is a skill we call setup Evermuse, which is a single command you type into Claude that then goes through a journey with you to connect your sources and understand how often you want them processed and how you want them processed, etc. And one of the challenges is we want it to happen inside of Claude or ChatGPT. And if you create your own interface, it runs off of your app. It can be adapted to the conversation. So we had to essentially design a skill that doesn't include hard design assets, but it still feels like our product and has Claude kind of customize it for you as you're building. And that was a very hard, we're still not perfect there, but now you can say set up Evermuse, and it goes through an Evermuse setup, and it has our logo in there, and goes through an Evermuse setup, but entirely with your sources, your priorities, and you can answer anything. And it presents you kind of your questions in a way that's a little bit branded with our stuff. So it was fascinating, because we have to understand, how do you define, without knowing what the button is or defining a hard UI, how do you still make it feel like it's our setup flow?
Right. It's challenging.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Super challenging.
I gave it a thought because I was thinking to myself, is this something, can I do something? Can I do something in that space? Because I know that that's coming. And the more I thought about it, the more challenging I saw that it can be, especially if you want to get it to the level of polish that would be expected from paying customers. So I totally get you. It's not an easy solve. You have to spend a lot of time thinking about it, and a team of designers, engineers, product folks will have to spend time really abstracting on what are all the possibilities, what are things that we're fine happening or not happening when we let this kind of loose.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's a juicy problem to sink your teeth in.
And I think if you dive into it and you think, well, what are the components of writing an app that really reacts appropriately to you and still feels like something?
Mm-hmm.
Or it still feels like a particular thing, right? So there's a design language that the agent has to understand. There is goals and tasks and capabilities and limitations and tone of voice and all of that comes together to meet a person at the moment where they need something. It's far more interesting than what we're seeing now. If you look at ChatGPT apps or the stuff that's just someone writing a putting an existing interface inside of ChatGPT.
Right.
But think about something custom like that happening. This is going to be a whole big thing. And I like the idea that there's still room for designers and product people, etc. But it's just a little bit more abstract, a little bit more meta.
Right.
So
it will be more demanding than it ever has been.
Yeah. So I want to talk about like doing the right thing in this context.
Okay.
And by the way, I noticed we're like a little bit, we both like to talk. So I think I want to check just to see if there's any questions, and then so far there's no questions in the questions and answer section. So if you have a question, now's the right time to ask it. We will run a few more minutes, and then we will answer questions. I also want to give people who stayed and are interested like a little prize or a little surprise on the Evermuse side. But that's coming in a couple of minutes. But please ask your questions, otherwise we won't have anything to discuss or to answer. So talking about doing the right thing in this context, because as we've already seen, AIs can be very manipulative. They read you pretty well. They pretend to be your friends. There's some apps that are very super manipulative. And there's a fine line between being super helpful and kind of custom to the user and manipulating them into doing things and addicting them, right? How do you tell the difference, and how do you think about it in your own work in terms of, and I know you work in healthcare, so it's a much cleaner ethics, I think, because you're doing something it's going to help people. But how do you think about ethics in that scenario?
It's a great question. Manipulation, as far as from my perspective, manipulation begins when understanding another person's cognition, or sorry, how do I formulate this? Maybe when you understand a person's cognitive state, and when it becomes a means of their feeding their agency, that's where I think you kind of cross that line. So agency, I think, is a really important word here. And AI dramatically, to your point, increases that risk. Persuasion itself is not immoral, right? Parents persuade their children. God knows, I try all the time to persuade my son to eat his dinner. Doctors persuade patients. Teachers persuade students to continue when something is difficult. So the moral question is towards what end? If I understand that you're confused and use that knowledge to restore your ability and make informed decision, I'm increasing your agency. That's good. If, however, I understand that you're confused and exploit that confusion to make a decision that I want easier than the decision that you might otherwise choose, I'm really diminishing that agency. And so that's the distinction I find useful. A good adaptive design restore or expands agency. Manipulative design exploits conditions under which agency is weakened. And AI make that distinction much more important, because the system may eventually understand the conditions influencing your behavior way better than you consciously understand them yourself.
Yeah, cool. So I wanna bring my screen back here, okay, and give you a chance to anybody here to ask us a question. But what? So I saw someone raise their hand. I can't really. Sorry, I'm not in full control of the system. I don't know where to go see who raised their hand. So someone raised their hand. If you have a question, please write it either in chat or in the questions and answers section, and we will try to answer that. In the meantime, I'll just say to all of you, we have a little promotion here for folks in this webinar. If you're interested, give you a 30-second homework. If you go into our website, evermuse.com, and I put the green button now below to that, and you connect your MCP and you create an account, the first 5 installers from this webinar are going to get our $100 a month plan free for 6 months. So that's actually plenty if you're doing small scale work. It's enough for many calls to be analyzed and for you to benefit from it quite a bit. So the first 5 installers today, we're going to go back and give this subscription to. So this is free to sign up. So that's a little 30-second homework while we're waiting for questions. And let's get back to the Q&A and see if anybody has asked any interesting question here. And if not, David, do you have any questions for me? And will I have any questions for you to wrap it up? I have an interesting closing question for you. What do you think? What do you think is the most? And I see questions are beginning to pop up, so let's give people a chance to ask and vote. What is the most controversial idea in your book that you think this team of people will kind of most likely disagree with?
All of it.
All of it?
Okay, so I suspect that the idea people will resist the most to is that human-computer interaction may have enough underlying structure that aspects of it can be represented mathematically. Not merely measured, but modeled. And I think a lot of people would say, okay, you're going too far. Now, UX already uses numbers and conversion rates and task completion and all of this stuff, but those numbers mostly describe outcomes. The ideas in the book ask whether you can construct equations describing aspects of the interaction itself. And that's what the book reaches into, that two seemingly strange places, the quantum mathematics and fluid dynamics. Now, of course, I am not arguing that human beings are quantum particles. I'm not saying that they're not, but I'm not arguing that they are.
They're made of quantum particles, right?
They could, also, I'm not arguing that thought is literally a liquid. That would be pseudoscientific of me to do. But the proposition is about mathematical structure. So quantum cognition, and you could go out and read tons of literature out there. Quantum cognition gives us ways of thinking formally about things like uncertain cognitive states, contextual decisions, competing possibilities, and state transitions. Fluid dynamics, on the other hand, gives us another mathematical language for flow, resistance, accumulation, velocity constraints, and instability. So QFIT modifies these ideas into interaction. And what I think this is what UX in general is going to have to wrestle with. So people will not like it, but they're going to have to wrestle with it. What if friction isn't merely a metaphor? What if uncertainty and resistance and state transition can actually be represented quite well enough that we can build models to make predictions about these interactions? Now, I propose mathematics for doing that. And now comes the important part. Reality gets to decide whether I'm right or wrong. Because equations aren't valuable because they're beautiful. And so, they are valuable.
They're valuable if they're predictive,
Exactly. If they explain observations.
I would say, so my dad is a mathematician, as we learned, and I rebelled against mathematics in my youth. It was so rigid. And so I turned into the humanities, and I became a product designer and a UX designer. But I've also studied a fair bit of philosophy and science, and I can say that some of the smartest people in the history of the world thought that the world was made of mathematics. And that's the language of nature. And when we are now looking at language models are just a bunch of numbers, right? They're just like matrices of numbers and rules about how to process them. So we have a couple, and the human brain, and they're inspired by the human brain, right? And which are about strength of connection. So to me, that feels like you know, you don't have to love doing math, but kind of understanding that it's a very, very powerful tool to model reality, and that and now with AI, you can have an Olympic, a mathematical Olympic
Oh yeah,
level mathematician just working for you, so you don't have to do the hard stuff, but you can start using it to be a better modeler of people and behaviors. That to me makes a lot of sense.
absolutely.
So
And Eran, I believe that's a beautiful tie to the very beginning and the very end of our
good,
discussion. You still have intuition. The
yeah,
the mathematical models and things like that could be, use your copilot, use your AI to help you put that thing together, but
yeah,
start thinking in abstraction about problems and how human interface with machines,
yeah.
and then you could work on this together.
Cool. We have a question from Lakshay Sharma. I hope I'm saying this correctly. So it's asking, like, AI UIs are so boring and predictable, and they're kind of they kind of don't feel like good design sometimes because they look like AI designs, and we've definitely experienced that ourselves. How do we make it look good? How do you make AI designs look good? I have a thought about that, but Dave, do you?
I have a thought about that, but I'd love to hear yours first.
It's fine. I'll start. So the to me, so the cool thing is, like, because it's been trained on so many websites and it's been trained on all of human knowledge, the results kind of been, because it's a statistical form of training, the out of the box results tend to go towards the middle, right? They tend to go to the averages. So it actually works quite well in UX because UX is looking for kind of common patterns that people expect. And so if typically out of the box, when you ask it to do something, the UX will be pretty good, maybe even better than something that you would design. But in design, we're actually looking for uniqueness and distinctiveness and character and brand values and all of these things that we want to make it look particular. That's what makes something look really great. And so the way to do that is to kind of inject as much of your own context and your own things that are important to you into the prompt, including things like make it really unique, make it, distinct. Here's our brand values. Here are some inspiring websites that, we think kind of speak our value language. All of that can immediately make it improvement. And then there's also a series of don't. If you notice things that repeat in these kind of Claude design things, like, don't use serif fonts in italic in the hero title. Like, oh my god, that's a dead giveaway now. A particular serif font in the hero title, to me, is like screams Claude.
Hmm.
But in certain colors and certain things, we had the spin color way before we started using Claude Code. But because Claude loves that color so much, I'm generally thinking about changing brand colors, just because it kind of makes it look more like Claude. It has to be like, this is our brand pink, but apparently Claude likes it too. Those are my kind of suggestions. It's going to drive it into a unique corner. What about you, David?
I share the same sentiment, and maybe you don't have to look far. Then talk to young designers coming right out of school. They have the same question: how do I stand out? How do I
Yeah,
do something that's exceptional, that will get me seen? Um, Now, to your point, Eran, same thing happens to people. We have to learn everything, the inside, before we are confident enough to break the mold, and do something completely new. So right now, I think we're in the phase of uh, uh, um, just learning the insides. I don't believe AI is capable yet, and it might not be capable. I don't know, at creating genuinely breakthrough new things. When it does, I mean, God help us.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
probably going to be capable of doing many other things.
I, I'm going to respond to that just because I feel like I have a pretty high certainty that it's coming. Like if you look at kind of the history of AI in various fields, it's already demonstrated great creativity that goes beyond what humans can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Go and in mathematics. And these are just the first areas that had kind of the best data and the most clear rules, right? But all you have to do is define mathematically the rules of good UX and UI, and it will be able to be much more creative and much more.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like we're all going to go to this meta level of like, okay, now where do we want to go? We all have to be kind of more philosophically minded, which is hard for some people who are used to thinking or used to being so pragmatic that they sort of disdained abstract thought. And that's not going to be good for you in the future, because everything practical the AI will be able to do better than you, virtually everything, right?
So here's a question, kind of dovetailing from that. The definition of good design, or the definition of good has a lot of cultural context to it. So when you were asked to define something beautiful, if you'd ask in the classical era, it would be one thing. If they saw, if you took them into a time machine and put them in postmodern art, they would look at stuff and say that's hideous. But then now we look at stuff like some of these postmodern art, like Bauhaus movement, as a beautiful, is beautiful. So I think the taste will change in time. Even what you see now is going to change. So you'll probably have outside influencers that are changing the system, and then the system adapting to it and becoming better. The question is, will we at some point be influenced heavily from brand new things that are generated by AI? That would be phenomenal. Would it be able to change our culture based on the things that it creates? And I think Asimov talked about it a lot in his books with the robots and Empire and all these other interesting things.
Yeah. Oh my God, we could talk about Asimov all day. All right, Adi's asking a question. What would you say is AI doing to our autonomy over our thinking process? Since we're now outsourcing thinking, how are we becoming different, and in what sense? Oh my God, it's a juicy question.
It's a juicy question.
You could start.
Okay, maybe we need to have some hygiene established with regards to what we allow ourselves to be done for us. And Eran, you mentioned we're giving AI to do things that we don't want to do so that we have more time to do the stuff that we want to do. Now the question is, okay, is there some value doing things that we don't want to do? Maybe there is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how we learn and get better ourselves.
Yeah.
And so there's also a fine line that like you must do it. All the children would ask, like, why do I need to know math? Why do I need to know geography, history? At that point in time, they don't see the value of all these things and how they compound towards a better ability to think. I think that's exactly what's happening with AI. We'll have people that are primarily users of AI. They will feed everything through and receive everything through, and live their life through that. And you will have tastemakers and people that are still, the doers. Probably a lot of people that have joined this conversation that will not be suffice for them, and there will be things that they do and think for themselves. You will have to come up with your level of comfort of, when is it too much to the point that I'm exceeding what I should be doing. I'll give you a very simple example. I do not remember a single phone number of anyone on my contact list. I used to, but since phone book became a thing on my phone, I don't have to remember it. And now I just don't have that muscle built in.
was there anything big lost there? Like to me, like the number was just a way to get in touch with that person. Now you just
Right,
tap their face.
right.
Uh, so it's so I'm a little bit more optimistic. So I really agree with the hygiene part and with the unfortunately we're gonna have to force ourselves to do things that we would rather not do,
Yeah.
and that to me is one of the most concerning aspects of this. Is like at least at this point in time, like so AI writes a lot of drafts for us for follow-ups and outreach to people based on the context of the conversation we have with them so far, and I still insist on reviewing everything before I send it, right? And the reason why is that it just messes up either my voice or my intention, or forgets something or misses something, or just some weird fluky behavior, or just a phrase that I kind of hate. um, and and so I end up doing. I hate this work, but I have to go through hundreds of drafts, be like, this is not good enough. Okay, approve. Uh, and uh, and I don't like to do it, but I feel like it's important, and I feel like with our social media stuff, like I actually feel like I should probably go over it more, because I really don't like social media. I don't really care about it that much, but we need to post a lot. So my tendency is to be like, okay, whatever, Claude, you're in charge. Uh, but really, if we want to keep the level high and we want to keep it kind of brand correct, and what we would actually want to say, I need to have more of a control over it and review it ahead of time, etc. So I think there's a really strong point there that we need to have some discipline. But I would like to offer a counterpoint to that, like the really positive counterpoint to that is like there is an awakening in open source software, in coding, in building, in starting new businesses. All of these things are easier than they've ever been. It's easier to learn coding. It's easier to learn anything. Like I just like bought a Linux computer and set it up on my own and installed Linux for the first time. And now I'm running a bunch of agents on it. And we just started writing our own agentic harness, and we built something really cool in a couple of days. And I would never do any of that stuff
Hmm.
before AI. So I feel like yes, I'm outsourcing some of the code writing, but actually my thinking process was never about code. It was about the changes I'd like to see in the world, and the products I'd like to see exist, and the processes I'd like to make happen. And those things are more expressed than ever, right? So this is my take is like always remember there's like there's a positive side, and there's something we're aspiring to that these tools could help us do.
I
Um,
love that perspective. Yeah, I think it's very optimistic, and I think it's very accurate. We might be losing certain things, but we are gaining plenty.
yeah,
The people that are now able to design, write, well, co-write or vibe code,
yeah,
and are able to
yeah,
launch products. Imagine the creativity that we're going to get, and the incredible things that we're going to get out of people that otherwise couldn't do it, whether from financial reasons or they just didn't want to learn how to code.
yeah,
Uh, those were a lot of voices that were lost because they didn't have the means to do it. And
yeah.
so we are gaining that. That's an incredible way to look at it. I really like it.
So we have one final question we're going to answer today. Okay, what are your thoughts about the idea that as interfaces disappear, the internet becomes more centralized? I'm saying soon you don't need to make a website. You just create the data that feeds AI as a third party. So people can find that info, and AI will present the data in a way that uh, makes sense. So do you think we are moving towards this? And what are the dangers for this hyper centralization? Madi, we kind of discussed it, and I kind of feel it from ourselves. Like we've built some amazing interfaces that nobody wants to see. The phrase we hear more often is like, "I never leave Claude. I don't want to leave Claude. Give me whatever you have inside of Claude." And so we kind of pivoted more into that direction, and it's working much better because that's where people live. That's becoming the new platform. But I am optimistic because I think when you get your value somewhere, you get more curious and more open about what else we have to offer. So I think people will start in Claude, but then we tell them, hey, yeah, but we also have created some really great views for you that don't live in Claude, but and all you have to do is click over to that website. They're still open to it. You just need to earn their trust and their attention first, right? But here's another thing that I didn't get to say before when we discussed this is like generic interfaces might be going away. The interfaces that don't really matter, that aren't that unique, that aren't that valuable. But just like in art, there are things that are delightful and really well thought out and really make a big change in our lives that express themselves as interfaces, as products to interact with. And those are not going to go away, right? Those are custom, highly polished, highly designed environments with their own rules that exist to delight us. And so just to give you an example, I don't think Slack is going away. I don't think the concept, like, just think about the concept of a dating app. Like, what's more delightful to browse a beautifully designed, dating apps have their own issues, but like to browse a beautiful design app that's specific to getting you interested in another person, or to chat with Claude. There's not like it's a dedicated interface for a reason, and someone put a lot of craft and work into it. I think there's some other issues with it, but there's many apps that do this for me, that give me this sense of aesthetic, sense of someone did something better than I could, right? And so why would I say that's going away? I don't think that's the case. But what is going away is a whole bunch of CRUD interfaces that have nothing unique about them, and they're just exist to manipulate a database. Yeah, that's probably going away because it's not that valuable. They didn't put that much work and craft into it. And maybe it's a good thing that you can build your own database and create your own interface on top of it in 5 seconds. That means that all the low hanging fruits are, you're more free to do what you want. That's my 2 cents. David, anything to add here before we say good night, or good evening to some people, and good night, and to some people just have a great day?
Yes, good evening, good morning, good night.
Yeah.
Not too much more to add, because I generally do believe that exemptional designs and extraordinary things have a tendency to have a stickiness to them. And it's true in arts, that's true in technology, it's true in pretty much everywhere you look. So aspiring towards becoming that exceptional, that comes with a cost. It's never easy. To your point around, there's going to be plenty of low-hanging fruits. That's plenty fine. But if you're looking for a surviving thing that will outlast a few generations, that will probably be something that you're going to have to spend some time genuinely thinking about. And ultimately stay curious. If you stay curious, that will lead you towards that path.
I love it. And then this is my final slide here. Go build something, because I really think that's the answer to how to deal with all of this change and chaos. Is just find something you're passionate about and make it happen with these amazing tools that you have. So thanks, everybody. It was lovely to see everyone. David, it was an amazing conversation. We of course will stay in touch.
Absolutely.
And we're eager to hear from anybody who wants to talk to us about anything. We're here. We're around. So thanks, everyone, and I'll see you around.